Hi, everyone. This is Operissimae. Today, I am very honored to have my friend Frank, the best tenor in the world, Frank Lopardo. I I love Lopardo from maybe long time ago. I heard your for me Mozart, is my god in somewhere.
Mhm.
And I heard your voice the first time with you sang Mozart. I was shocked. You shocked my life for
Okay.
what I thought. I know you sang several other opera in your life in your
Yeah.
career, but what shocked me the first time was Mozart. This is yes, what I love in opera,
Right.
the number one, the over the top. Okay,
Yeah.
today we are talking for a while around some questions, and the question is that the 10 question of Operissime. Operissime is my website
Wonderful.
in which I published my book about opera.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and 10 simple question. I know you you have a lot of teach us in your knowledge about opera.
Right.
Okay, I can start with the first question, Frank. For me and for many of your fans, you are the quintessential Mozart singer. What do you think about that?
um, you know, thank you very much for the compliment.
Oh,
When I was a young student, um, Mozart was not my first inclination, right?
wow.
So to be considered eventually to be quintessential in in that composer in particular is a great honor for me.
Oh,
And it wasn't because I did not have appreciation for Mozart. I certainly did. It was more a matter of temperament and a lack of education that I had not embraced Mozart yet. And I'm talking 1977, 1978. I'm not talking, when you were first familiar with me. By the time you had first heard me, I was fully ensconced, fully committed to Mozart. In fact, so much so that if it were possible for me to have a career solely on the Mozart repertoire, I would have gladly done it. If you had told me for the next 30 years, all you can sing is Ferrando, Don Ottavio, Zauberflöte, Tamino, even Don Curzio, I didn't care. La Clemente di Tito, I
yeah,
Dominici.
Beneo.
This is a full plate, a full dinner, un pranzo intero. So,
Completo, completo, un pranzo
completo.
completo.
So, so I have to credit my teacher, Dr. Robert White was his name, and he gave me the tools to eventually sing Mozart as well as I did. Now, now let's keep in mind that the progression from my first lesson to my debut in opera. My first lesson was 1977. I decided to go into musical theater,
Oh,
Broadway. Man of La Mancha, West Side Story, whatever there was for me, I tried to do. And so in 78 and 79, I did some musical theater in what they call here in America as summer stock. You go for 8 weeks upstate New York, and actually it was the Mac Hayden Theater in Chatham, New York, and we did 8 musicals in 8 weeks. The first you rehearse, you open the first one, and then during the day you're rehearsing the next opening, but performing that night. So it really was some of the hardest work I ever did. And when that was over, I came back to New York, and there was nothing for me and how my voice had developed. So I decided to commit myself fully to classical music. Let's not say Mozart, but
yeah.
classical music.
Mhm.
And then piano piano, I found my way that the only composer that was actually even Puccini, who I didn't find until much later, and
Yeah,
then only sang La Bohème, you know, and then and also Madama Butterfly, but the more lyrical of Puccini, I was at my very core a Mozart tenor. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. And if anything changed me and made me a better person or a more disciplined individual, it was Mozart and his requirement or him demanding certain things of me,
yeah,
changes in my life
yeah.
in order to sing him well. You can't drink, you can't smoke, you have to watch your diet, you need to exercise. These are things that are common to all composers, I believe. However, knowing, not that I was a I was going to hell in a handbasket, but I needed to do certain things and live almost a monastic way, in a way, and commit myself entirely to this repertoire because it is very particular, you know. And if I can tell you a story, many years later, I was already in the career, and I had an opportunity to audition for Sir George Schulte. Now this is, you know, and I auditioned for him on a lark. I was in the theater in Boston singing something already, and the theater, they said, Sir George is coming. He wants to hear singers. And I said, oh, okay. And so I called my agent. He says, yes, yes, it's okay. Go, go. Now, I didn't have my book of repertoire, arias, songs, what have you. So I went to the library and I got some copies of things that I did, but my markings were not in them. So I didn't need it. I knew them. I just gave the music to the pianist. In any case, to make a long story short, so George Schulte said to me, you know, my boy, it's very interesting. You have two composers in your throat. You have Verdi and Mozart in your throat. Well, by this time it was true. I was moving in that direction anyway. But you know, he engaged me then for uh, for La Traviata at Covent Garden. And then as I'm waiting to go to Covent Garden, I already had this job. I got a call to come in at the last minute for Così fa tutte. So here you have this, you know, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping the gun on some of your questions, but uh, you know, I've always been one to listen to people who are much smarter than me and tell me this is very good for you. Do this, you know,
Yeah,
and so you know,
yeah. This was my question because
yeah.
what I had my feeling was the first time. This is the the voice with elegance, with what exactly what Mozart demand.
Yeah,
Was my first feeling,
yeah.
and then you are tenor. You sang a lot of other opera,
Other options. Yes. Yeah.
but this elegance, this style, very classical style,
Yes.
is in your voice. I noted absolutely the first time, the immediately. Yeah, what? But of course, Sir Schulte was right when
Well, no,
he said
he
you can.
was right, and uh, his observation was very interesting to me because up until then, the criticism of I often received criticism that I didn't know who I was because I was able to change styles so readily. And but see, this is something I always tell my students even till today.
Yeah,
You can take Mozart with you wherever you go, but you can't take Puccini back. Okay, you can take Mozart forward.
yeah,
Okay. So say you want to take an occasion, you sing some Rossini, you want to sing some other things, or Donizetti, Bellini. The core, if you are a good Mozart singer, you can do those other composers, and the core of your singing can be still be Mozart, and
totally agree.
still be in the
Totally,
center of those
yeah,
composers. You see?
absolutely,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
why it's so difficult, though, in Verdi, because is there such thing as a Verdi tenor? No, we talk about the Verdi baritone. We talk about the Puccini tenor, the Verdi tenor is difficult to define because the same guy who sings Rodolfo cannot sing Kalaf. The
Exactly.
same guy who sings Gianni Schicchi cannot sing La Fanciulla del West.
Exactly.
So the same guy who sings La Traviata and Rigoletto cannot sing Otello. You see, so we cannot define ourselves in Verdi very well, but in Mozart, you can. If you sing Don Ottavio, you can sing La Clemenza di Tito. So you see, so
Right. Right.
if I'm going off,
Thank you.
it's very important to
Thank you.
say.
I agree totally,
Yeah.
Frank, with you. Okay, second question. You will have sang with the greatest conductor in the world. What do you think you have learned from them? And consequently, what do you think you have to share with the younger generation of students?
Well, obviously, every situation, professional situation you get yourself into, is material for the next professional engagement you get yourself into. So in each one, you are honed and grinded down, like or formed for the next job and the next job and the next job. In each contract, if we want to use this
Yeah,
terminology, or each project
project. Yeah,
becomes a proving ground for the next and the next and the next. And that's why it's so important. If you especially at the end of, or the beginning or the end of the career, where you have a few jobs, and that's often the case. The arc of the career is you have a few jobs, then you have a lot of jobs, and at the end of the career you have a few jobs. So
yeah,
when you have a few jobs, getting into the stream of things is very difficult. But when you have 15 jobs a year, 20 jobs a year, you're just flowing. You come out of one rehearsal into performances, next rehearsal, performance, rehearsal, performance. And so what I learned from these conductors was how to prepare, right? How to prepare. So what the most demanding conductor became the catalyst for every other conductor I would work with,
oh,
if that makes any sense. And for me, the most demanding or the most difficult, and it's not out of, I have great admiration and great respect for him, uh, um, but no longer idolatry, I have to say. At one time, it may have bordered on idolatry, was Muti, right? Riccardo Muti. No one else rose to that level. Now, if you look at my resume, there's no reason for me to name the conductors I work with. That would be foolish. But none of those others behaved in the way he did. He was demanding. He was uh, to, he was difficult to please, almost to a fault, right? And so it's very important to understand that that conductors like that are not collaborating with you. It's not collaboration. You are part of the ensemble. You are another voice in the orchestra. You are on the list of people under their wing, under their control.
right.
And so I think if you were to ask other singers who worked with Muti about their experience with him, if they were brave enough to be honest, they would tell you very similar story. You know,
I I
yeah,
think so.
yeah.
Muti is così si fa. Così si fa.
Così si fa. That's right. You could work for 10 weeks rehearsal, whatever period, rehearsal period. When he comes, guarda me.
Guarda me.
Look over here.
Guarda
Look at look. So you set up a dramatic situation with your colleagues, a director, and then suddenly he comes and says, "Forget. I don't care what you've been told. Guarda me. Guarda."
guarda.
And I, that's fine. And having worked with him many times, up until 1990, yes, 1995, up until then, I knew I was set up for the next time I would see him. I knew exactly how to behave. I was freer with other conductors. I was a little more myself. But Muti was a singular individual who had a certain kind of influence on me. So I give him great credit for teaching me how to learn a score. It was a tremendous gift on his part. And then after him, I have to say that Schulte was the next great influence in my life. And probably because he was like a father figure to me. You know, he was so much older. He was in his mid 80s when I met him, but tremendous, tremendous vitality. Put everyone in the room to shame with the energy and the his sheer presence. And then there was no one in the room who had a higher electric output than he did. And I think that was probably intentional on his part. He was going to be in the guy in the room with this and you know, put you to shame. You
Can
come in
feel it.
tired and he said, what's wrong with you, my boy? What's wrong with you? You are
Yeah,
young. Look at me. And he insisted on this same level of
yeah.
intensity from everyone present, you know.
We can feel in his recording, in every recording from Schulte. We can feel
Oh,
what
oh
you
my
say.
God, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, one thing I found that I about him that I didn't receive from any other conductor or witness from every other conductor. You know, we did a concert of the Così fan tutte live around Europe, and then it became a recording. But after every concert, he would go to the podium and pick up the Così score and go like this to the audience and wave. You know, your orchestral score is pretty big. It's a heavy thing, you know, and he'd pick this whole thing up and go like this, and the audience would just respond with roar,
Oh,
because he knew why he was there, you know, and everyone knows of his reputation. He was an interesting character, right? And so
absolutely.
every place where he was, he had a certain reputation for being very intense, whatever. But he always knew why he was there. If he was in Chicago, he was there for Wagner. If he was in the Bible, you know, whatever it was, it really was from the composer out, not from Schulte in. You know what I mean? It wasn't about him. It was about the composer, and that's why he was so intense and so bombastic. He was trying in some way, I believe, to channel the intentions of the composer. And I'll tell you, we did both this Così and then later La Traviata, and it was the same intensity. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, wow. And with Nicolas Arnoncourt?
I never did, never
I
worked with him.
know.
No, no, never had the pleasure. You
Oh,
know, I always thought that I never understood why, to be honest with you,
oh,
because he did wonderful projects that I certainly would have been appropriate for. I think sometimes, and this is a very long story, but sometimes who your agent is affiliated with has everything to do with where you travel.
okay.
And so when you see that the course of your career doesn't go in the course that some others may have, there are a million reasons why people frequent certain venues and certain conductors. But I tended to see that like that type of like Sir Neville Mariner or Hanencourt,
So
I
yeah,
never went in that direction, yet I would have been perfectly suited to work with them, but I don't think my agent was
yeah, I know.
tight
Uh,
with them. You
maybe
know.
maybe this is my what we say in Italian, un lapsus freudiano. Maybe I collect I connect you with Nicolas Arnoncourt for some reason. I don't know why.
See, also, no, but listen, that would have been great. That would have been wonderful.
Okay,
But unfortunately, no, no, no.
okay, but
Yeah.
okay, good. Third, number three. What artists have been your reference during your education?
Well, it all depends on the repertoire, certainly, right? I mean, so since you were kind enough to point out that I was a Mozart tenor for quite a long time, I looked for people, particularly on recordings, because I wasn't able to see them live wherever I looked for people who were renowned in the repertoire that I chose, right? So we're looking at, Fritz Wunderlich, of course. If you're doing Tamino, Fritz Wunderlich, right? So, and then other, I, but for me, the model in Mozart became Francisco Arraiza.
Oh,
I
yeah,
really
yeah,
love Francisco Arraiza. The guy, the timbre of the voice, the quality, his fioratura, it was all there. And to be quite honest, for a long time, especially when I was quite young, I set myself up as his not, and I hadn't even met him yet. He's such a great guy. I eventually were colleagues, but I set him up as the ideal, and I have to beat this. This is the level I need to arise to. And it was amazing to me, truly amazing. I still think about it. It's like I feel like a young man again. When I first met him, I didn't know how, I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk because there he was. All of the people that I eventually worked with are people that I heard on recordings, that I went to the theater to see, and then they became my colleagues. And it was really, and so you may ask yourself, how was Francisco my colleague? We were sharing a Don Giovanni at La Scala. And that's so he was one cast, I was the other, but we were always together because if you were at La Scala, this is Sala Gialla. It's a okay. It's like the secret room.
Yes.
And so back to Maestro Muti, we had a cast on one side, a cast on the other side of this long table, with Muti in the middle and the end, and Bob Kettleson playing the piano, right? So. And the rehearsals were so difficult because we'd all have our scores in front of us, because at any time you may have to sing, right? It was so say Leporello sacerdote giorno fa di that singer starts singing for a while, and Muti will say, no, now you have to pick up right where that guy was singing. And we'll go back and forth, and he loved that. So we had this kind of situation, very often, because he was trying to save time, and everybody was sitting there, and he didn't want to say, well, I'm only working with the A cast, or it wasn't an A and B, it was about dates, So in any case, okay, Frank, dalla sua pace. He's singing dalla sua pace, and now and it was really, and you can't eat, you can't sleep, because you don't know what the rehearsal was going to be like. And anyway, Francisco could not have been nicer to me, and it really was wonderful to work with him. And after him, there was Alfredo Kraus. I loved Alfredo Kraus, and there was something about his technique that I grabbed and hung on to for a long time, and that's this forward position, right here in the and no, there was no greater teacher on recording for me than him in many of the roles that I sang. Lucia, Figlia del Reggimento, all of these things. Kraus was the guy for me.
Okay.
So you imagine, and then all of my idols are long gone. Naturally, Di Stefano, Björling, Caruso. There's something. When I was a young person and I had no money, I would go to the New York Public Library and pick up LPs, and all you could take out was 10 per visit. So I would take out 10. I had a special little satchel suitcase. I put 10 LPs in there. Now, you talk about how far back we go. It was pre-CD. There was no CD, no DVD, nothing like that. I would take them home, and I would make recordings from them onto cassette tape. And I still have many, many, many of them. And this was my education. And I read all the notes, the liner notes, and I educated myself. And I heard hundreds of operas with and many times the same opera with 5 or 6 tenors, just to absorb as much as I possibly could. And so Björling, of course, Lauri Volpi, all of the usual suspects. But where you might hear the average person say, of course, Domingo and Pavarotti, I was certainly influenced by them, but there was something about their singing that was remote for me and my abilities. Yeah. So I found singers that I could grasp, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah. Okay, number 4. What is vocal style for you, and what importance do you give to the exquisitely musical preparation of a singer?
Well, this is I will speak purely on a personal level. school, music school, was good for me, very good, because prior to going into college, Queens College, and then later in Queens, New York, and then later the Juilliard School, prior to that, I had very little practical musical experience, theory, keyboard, things like that. So I was able to get the tools that I needed there to teach myself music, right? Now, one of the benefits, if there's such a thing, of having very little money was that I couldn't afford to go to coaches. And coaches now, a coach is, I don't know, $150, $200 a session. But back in 1980, 82, 83, 84, a coach was like $100 or $75 if you got, and I didn't have it.
Yeah.
So I formed a method for myself, a system by which I could learn on my own and then bring that music fully responsible for my own preparation to the workplace, right? And see, that's one of the other things that I found from working with coaches. I would pay coaches on occasion, and then I would do exactly what they said, because obviously they knew better than me. And then I would go to the theater or to the concert hall, and the conductor would say, "Where did you get this? What the heck is that?" So I said, "Listen, if I'm going to get yelled at for, I want it to be my responsibility." And so I found that the system that I designed for myself, I ended up getting yelled at very little, a lot less, and it cost me less. So
Yeah.
this is something, this financial idea. I don't mean to talk about money, but it's one of that every young singer has to deal with, especially today. The rents are incredible. People are working long hours just to make a few dollars to pay the rent and eat, hopefully, as well as they can. And now you have coaches, you have voice lessons, and whatever else you need to prepare you to be a professional. It's
Yeah.
very difficult. I have to say, in my time, it was somewhat easier than it is today. So a little bit closer to your, what is vocal style? Vocal style is the ability to switch composers at will. Mozart, like we talked about Mozart, moving Mozart forward, but the distinctiveness of the bel canto style, the distinctiveness of verismo. You suddenly have to understand fully where you are and bring your powers to that music. And it's a rude awakening when you suddenly doing a role that you've wanted to do for a long time and doing it in its entirety, and you realize how much stamina you really need to get through an entire evening. So planning and pacing is very important to be able to achieve that. Now that I teach a little bit, the thing that perplexes me the most is that you cannot teach musicality. If there is such a thing as talent, innate talent, it's one of musicality. Um, I remember working with a coach in Chicago 35 years ago, and she had worked with Luciano a lot. And I was like, "Oh, can I touch can I touch you? You were 5 feet away from Luciano. Can I touch your shoulder?" I was so like working with somebody that worked with Luciano was
Yeah. Big
and
Luciano, big
you know what I
Luciano.
mean? It happened to be in Luciano's proximity, and she said, one thing you have to say about him is that you can give him a laundry list, you could give him a grocery list, and he will make music from it. He had, he had a real, aside from this God-given voice, he understood style. He made music, and I work with students and I bang my head against the wall. You cannot teach musicality. You cannot teach phrasing, fraseggio. You cannot teach finish the phrase, think in longer units, sing on the vowel. It's the greatest challenge and the greatest obstacle to moving forward with a student. You'll find that after 6 months, you're still working on certain concepts because the student has yet to grasp this idea that musicality will actually fix a lot of things. You see? So anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. Look.
Yeah.
Okay, number five. Can you generally describe your conception of vocal technique?
One of the conflicts that I have now as a teacher with coaches is that I work with a singer in a certain way, and then they go to work with coaches and they work in a different way. And then they come back to me and I say, "Oh, you've been with a coach." And then I fix it up and and they go back to the coach. So for me, it's pretty much along these lines. Legato on the entire vowel, bringing in following consonants as late as possible, end of phrase directed, right? And so what does that mean? Um, when you're in the center of a vowel, you're singing a vowel, and you preempt or foresee that consonant which is coming, and you start to change the quality of that vowel in anticipation of forming, using the articulators to form the next consonant, you've already changed the quality of that vowel.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about is staying in the center of the vowel for as long as possible. Remember that every vowel is assigned a note duration. And so when we bring in the following consonant too soon, we're actually truncating to some degree the note value.
Okay.
So this is, and you see this all the time where singers are running to the consonant which actually belongs at the beginning of the next syllable. They're already singing it as part of the syllable that they're in, right? In Italian in particular, remember that we have only open syllables. Spero, caro, morto. We're not saying morto, caro. We don't run to the consonants and with such in an anxious way. We live fully that one instance of vowel life until we are finished with it, and
Yeah.
then we initiate the next consonant. The next consonant is the beginning of the next syllable,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know. And
Yeah.
so I find maybe particularly with American singers, although I've worked with in Europe as well, there's this tendency to run to the consonant because, and this is my theory, coaches have a think that diction, when we talk about diction or pronunciation, they only see consonants in their work. No, diction is about crisp consonants. No, diction. When if I have many diction books, and there are a few chapters on vowels there also. So
Yeah.
so when we talk about diction, we have to include vowels and the quality of vowels.
Yeah.
Italian has 5 vowel letters but 7 vowel sounds.
Got it. Yeah. Got it.
So open and closed E, open and closed O. I hope I'm not going. I can speak on this one topic for days, and not just hours, but days. And so this idea of vocal technique, yes, but it's something that has to be in real time, knowing that when you go sit down, you're not preparing your music like an amateur, like someone who just likes music to pass time.
Yeah.
You are working towards bringing that music to performance level. And if I may, if you don't learn your music right the first time, cleanly, be diligent about learning it the first time you open the book. If you learn it wrong, you're having to relearn it will make your life miserable, will ruin you, because and it's so easy to pay attention to detail and learn what's on the page right the first time, rhythmically, diction, words, placement of vowels and consonants. Learn it right the first time, because if you make mistakes, it's going to make you look very bad in the professional setting for conductors and your colleagues. And it's going to make your life much harder to have to go back and relearn it correctly, because the mind registers what you first feed it. You
Yeah.
see, so I had a score closed rule that on the first day of rehearsal, I don't care if it's a month away from the opening, score closed, score closed. No one ever saw me with my score open unless the conductor said, I have a note for you, write this in. And then, okay, hold on, I may forget that, let me write it in. Score closed, first rehearsal, score closed.
Wow.
That's a challenge. Now from that first day of rehearsal, you can develop your role and your participation in this production towards the first performance, which for me was always the dress rehearsal. So that's
good, very good, very good.